All right, so this is our second public budget workshop meeting, and we have Roger, and we're gonna go through your budget, and then later on, we're going to go through Ed's. So Crystal, you wanna take it away?
Sure. The first thing that I went through all of the personnel codes for Roger today. Mostly because as I was going through things, I noticed from a little bit of a difference between what was budgeted last year and my PERMA report for 18-19. So I reworked some numbers and did percentages based on the PERMA report that I submitted for 18-19 for.
So you just moved it.
Yeah, basically it was just kind of shifting around hours pretty much.
And we added the 2%.
And yeah, 2% estimated.
So now it's all allocated in the right buckets.
Yes.
Well, as far as the report goes, it'll
what it was,
fluctuate most
yeah.
likely every year depending on where they're attributing more of their time, I think. But that's just how it made more sense to me to, look at the report and see what percentage of time was being, used for each person and go from there.
People will see the total as 114 compared to the current budget of 90 and wonder why it's so much more.
Right.
But it's technically not, because it's just been reallocated.
Right.
To our codes.
I also pulled out, you'll notice, overtime from the regular, just the 0.1 and put it in its own line. It's not a big difference. The snow removal is the one that usually is has the most overtime. And you'll see that, that's a difference there.
So that's 5142.
Right, which is 5142, yes. And then I just thought it was easier to pull out the overtime so that you can see where, or what is attributed to those items, or that line.
Point to equipment is the same.
Right.
And then the contractual 0.4 is less than it was in the current budget.
5110.4 you said?
Yeah,
For street
central
maintenance?
garage, yeah, the first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, under central garage, sorry.
First.
Contractual, correct.
So even though that's a higher number, again, that's just because of reallocation, and it'll show up later.
Exactly. Yeah, as far as the personnel codes, they kind of even themselves out throughout the.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. Roger, do you want to explain the difference in your street maintenance code? We moved some items.
Transportation is just a.
So this is the chips you're talking?
Yeah, street maintenance, yeah.
I don't know that much about the chips. I was under the impression, which I said last time, that when we got the money back, it went back in.
Yeah.
I brought the chips paper.
So this is something important, because this line item shows his personal services based on the reallocation plus the 2%.
Right.
The $300 is overtime, and Crystal put that in.
Which is just a rough estimate based on 18-19's overtime.
So the equipment is $90,600, okay? That's for the other new truck and whatever snow removal equipment we need.
Correct.
So it shows 128 to 56 for the contractual, 128. But should this, since it's reimbursed, show a line item that technically the 90,600 is canceled out.
Right, so technically.
Because it's artificially inflated because those numbers come back. So should you show reserve allocation and put the minus there?
But doesn't that show under revenue?
It does, but you don't see it
It
here
is
because
there is a
this
revenue.
budget line item.
It's not
Right.
the same number either, which gets confusing because
right.
it has its own
And I
number
think that's why
given
Bonnie
by the
always kept
state.
it low.
Yes,
So that it wouldn't
Throw the
reflect-
budget out.
Right.
right.
But even though she kept it low, I was still able to use what was on my sheet, but I don't know how that works.
No,
So-
It doesn't
know.
really reflect that that's being put back in.
No, it's sort of like in the cloud.
It is.
you know?
Right.
So
Well, that's why you have to
Right.
keep going back to the
Yeah,
reserve. So it's more
exactly.
like a
Yes.
reimbursement.
So then the question would be to
Well, it is
reduce that, so we come under the 124,000, or leave it alone.
What's the
And-
120?
Chips.
It just,
So leave it at 128?
yeah, or
I-
32.
Yeah.
And knowing that technically, to me, the whole budget should be totaled up minus whatever we're gonna put back in from reserve.
Right.
To me, it should, as a bottom line.
Right, at the
it
end,
should go,
well,
and then the actual budget should be minus the 90,000.
Right, but it
Right.
doesn't reflect it here.
Just
Right,
at the end of the
exactly,
budget.
yeah,
exactly.
so in here, you'll see, I printed it all out, even if there was zeros, you'll see where the, let me find the page. I think it's page 12 or 13.
This is what I have with my rollover.
Yeah.
and What they gave me this year.
Page
This is what I
12
have. Plus I have
Starts the
paid New York,
revenues. I have
this
not
is
gotten
not
any
my total. I
revenue
believe
numbers
I
in
need
there
that
yet,
part of the paid New York.
but,
I don't have
that's
a
where it'll
rollover.
show,
The chips.
yeah, the CHIPS money will be in this area here.
Roger,
Exactly.
Roger and Mark, if we can have one conversation, sorry. So if you can turn in your hymnals to the tentative budget, page 12.
Actually, it's page 15 where you'll see the CHIPS money, which is A 3501.
Okay, so revenues start on page 12 and if
They
we
go
further
to
down
15.
to 15. So this is where on page 15, 1, 2, 3, third line down, right now, there are some zeros in there, but that's where you're going to see where the CHIPS money comes in.
And you'll see total, like, earned, for, as of the 31st of January was 108. 455. I don't know if, Roger, if you had time to go and look and see.
That's the third column in, right,
Yeah.
under CHIPS. So that's how
To
much
see
we've
how
earned so
much-
far.
He's got it here,
Right,
he's got 146,284 in chips, paid New York, he has 27,440.
But I think I used half of paid New York because I don't think I had a rollover on that because I think I used it
Yeah.
before or after this came out, so.
okay.
Because you have to use the paved New York first, and when we paved Elliott Lane and stuff, I'm sure I used the paved New York, so. Even though they've got the 13 as a rollover, I don't believe I have that. I think I just only have 13 instead of 27 in there.
Okay, and then we would use that this year for any paving you would do.
So there's 148, 284, and 13, so roughly 160, whatever.
So as long, to me, as long as it shows it at the end, so the entire budget is either flat
Yes.
or goes down,
Yep,
because of the money coming back.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the part that always confused me right there, because she would only put in 30,000, but I'd still do everything I had to do, and it
Yep.
never, and she never explained that part to me, so I
And
didn't.
we'll
If
make
it's-
sure you're still able
yeah.
to do what you need to do.
if it's easier to kind of look at, we can write, you know, I can put in next to like equipment / chips or something like that near this line. The
Well, I always
5110
know what I have,
too.
because they send me
Yeah.
these quarterly, every 3
Right.
months, so I always know what's in there, I just don't know.
For the rest of
How to
everybody.
reflect it on the budget, that's,
Right, okay. So you wanna continue through?
Or we can make a subcategory that's for just chips, materials and expenditures and stuff
Yeah,
like
maybe
that.
next year we can do that.
Yeah.
Just separate. So snow removal, 14,901, it went down from 27 because of the reallocation.
Right,
The OT.
and, yeah, because I pulled the overtime out as well.
separated. No equipment and contractual 14,750, which is operating.
So we had talked about a small snow machine for the
That's coming out of
sidewalks.
chips.
We,
That would be out of chips.
that was the other thing that we,
we're still
We're still researching it,
trying to
Okay.
find something that'll fit our
budget
and
and.
needs.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll put that on the side.
If you go to page, page numbers are on here. There is a breakdown
Okay,
after this little,
okay,
um,
that's fine.
and it does show it in there as,
TBD.
well, we put in 6,000 for now, but, that'll be, yeah.
Okay,
So
Great.
there's basically a reduction of $6,000 in those snow removal line items.
Mm-hmm.
Sidewalks,
so sidewalks, this does include, the sidewalk from here down to where it stopped.
We put
Yep.
we put that in the chips now,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's not on the sidewalk part of the budget anymore.
So this 7,900 does not include
That
that?
does not include that.
Okay, so the DOT /
If you-
sidewalk is, okay.
It's,
Where's the 7,900? Where am I missing 7,900?
Is the
Where are you?
5.4 contractual?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Sidewalks.
Yeah, okay.
Just want to explain what that is.
Thank you. That's why you're sitting next to me, Mark. Thank you.
Roger will explain what it is.
Thank you.
Where were we now?
5410.
Sidewalks,
5410.2 or?
Two. Four.
4, yeah.
And what-
It's
79.
sidewalk repair, work sign and stands, PPE, that's personal, what is that, personal
I don't see that.
Protective equipment.
protective equipment, there we
I don't see
go.
the sidewalk repair in
Oh,
there.
no, it's Gilman Town Road.
That's our contract through the town.
Okay, that's contractual, right?
Yep, they plow it and.
Coal patch, miscellaneous tools, stock culverts, work signs and stands, and.
That's 5110,
We're on 5410.
Oh, well, I'm on the wrong one too.
next page
So
down.
Mark, you're looking at the detail for.
Yeah, the detail will tell you exactly what the bridge is.
Yeah,
Right, so that's sidewalk repair, and that is the one on Route 3. Route 8. The sidewalk repair for 7,000 is Route 8.
Yes,
is that, okay, cause we hadn't, I guess we didn't.
So that would be CHIPS reimbursable.
So that'll be actually crossed out, and it'll be less that much, because we put it up into the CHIPS line
Oh,
before.
it's under CHIPS materials?
5110.2, the 7,000
Oh,
up there at
sidewalk, yeah,
sidewalk.
that's right, it is in two places.
Yeah,
Okay, so under 5410.4.
Yes, no?
So that'll be reimbursed to CHIPS, that's why we need to have a CHIPS, yeah.
so that'll be crossed
That'll
off,
also be-
and, because it's also up here in the 5110.
And the 90,000 and the 7,900 is
So that'll be-
reimbursed.
Oh, so you've got it in two places.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I
so
see
it'll
where
be
we're at.
900,
Right.
not 7,900.
Good catch.
I thought that was just for maybe other sidewalk
Well, that's
repairs
where
you
I
might
always-
do throughout the.
That's where I always put my sidewalk repairs, until I found out that, so
Chips
we
is
decided to
reimbursed,
move it
okay.
this year.
Okay,
So we'll keep it there for this year, and then we'll do a whole CHIPS thing, line item
Right.
next year, and then it's easier to follow.
Terrific.
So the personnel services for that, a lot of the time that it's, the sidewalks are done are overtime, so that's why the overtime line is, close to the regular time.
Okay, sounds good.
Playgrounds and rec centers, personnel services, again, it's lower because it's reallocation.
Yes.
The overtime, Chris will put in 400, the equipment is at $1,400 this year, from 2025.
So I think
Do
we
you
were
think that's
looking,
sufficient, 1,400?
Well, we replaced the two pieces of playground equipment
Yeah,
last year, so
yeah.
that was the major cost last year.
How about any more sand? What, I'm trying
We
to
have to,
think.
we have to do wood chips around the one
Yeah,
part of the.
that's
but-
right.
But that, the wood chips, I think I can get from Randy, where the
Oh,
big
okay.
pile down there, depending
Okay.
how clean they are. Trying to think if there's, I don't know if the tables and the bear cans would go under that for equipment.
No, I think you got it in.
I've got them separate.
Yeah, I
don't
think you've got them in the contractual line
Right.
yes,
right now.
7410,
Yeah.
so bear cans, tables at the point.
Yeah, at one time though, we talked about the lighting in the pavilion, about upgrading lighting in the pavilion.
And we're
You
talking
remember
about
that?
that, and at the
Yeah.
garage too. We
Yeah.
have, me and Ed have to sit down and look at LEDs, but that's been,
Yeah.
So is that anywhere
It's-
in here?
There's no
Well,
estimate yet.
there's no
No.
estimate, I have it written down there, but I didn't put a dollar amount.
But looking at the increased use of that pavilion,
Right.
on dark dreary days, it's a dark building.
No, we
The
made a
lighting
mistake putting
is-
the recessed light in.
Exactly, I know.
The lights that were
right.
there before worked a lot better, but they kept getting broke, so we
Yeah.
had this bright idea if we
Right.
recess them, they were,
I
but then they
know.
don't light
They
up
don't-
nothing, so.
It's really quite substandard, those lighting in there. Is there
Right.
some way, what would your suggestion be? Do you think that just switching to LED lights would give it that much
I
better?
think you're gonna, I don't think
I
you're
don't
gonna
know.
want them recessed, but we're gonna have to, if we put lights back the way we were, we're
I
gonna
know.
put like a metal cage on them or something, or
Can we
I
put
think
more
the-
lights on the sides?
we could probably do that
You know.
and not worry about the recess, but
yeah,
those
leave-
spotlights that are there now, we have to change anyway, cause they're,
Yeah,
and if we change them to LEDs, they're gonna be brighter. And there's
Right.
what, 3, 6, 7, I think there's 9 spotlights all the way around there, and if we change the LEDs, they're gonna be brighter than what's there. But I've only got
Right.
3 of them on the timer.
Okay,
Because when we first put them in, we were having trouble with our electric, and if all of them came on, after they're on oil, it popped a breaker. I think that
Right.
problem has been fixed,
okay,
so I could probably put them all on the timer and have Gary change that around, but right now we just have the north side on the timer, and it lights it up pretty good, but
yeah,
there's still dark spots.
it is dark spot.
Is there anyone we can consult, as far as someone who knows lighting, about what
Well,
we can put in there?
there's a manual on lighting.
Oh,
Yeah,
perfect.
there is.
All right. We
Really,
can,
an engineer does it,
okay.
you know? they
Yeah, I
figure out-
just think it's something with that increased use of that pavilion, it's dreary, it's not only in the evening, when you have a concert that goes beyond when the
Right.
sun goes down. I don't know, I just think something needs to be done there. That's why I'm questioning whether $1,400 is enough, because that would go into playgrounds and rec
Right.
centers.
So do you want to increase that to 25 or the last
Well,
budget?
if he can come up with something, at least you have the money there, but it gives you time to.
Well, I think I would
research
definitely
what
start
we
by
can do.
changing the spotlights and the LEDs.
Okay.
I think that's gonna make a big difference.
Alright.
And I think they're gonna be more durable. And if we
Good.
have enough money, I could put even a few more than 9.
So
Right.
And they don't take as much power either.
Yeah,
so.
so that we could have a couple more in
Right.
there, right.
So we'll increase it to 2,500 from, as it
14?
was last year, from 1,400.
Yeah,
So just put
I'd
that
like to
on
see
your
how that would work.
individual
24?
sheet area.
That'd be the 7.
To 25.
Right, from 1,400 to.
So, Roger, I'm just looking at the garage. Garage also has LED lights on
There's no
there,
number in there.
That there's no number. When would you,
Ed was gonna sit down with me. I'll have to talk to him tomorrow.
yeah, so.
I
Don't
know-
think that's gonna be a major expense
No.
other than,
I know
500
that,
bucks?
hold on, I know that he put his numbers for the water and
Treatment?
wastewater treatment
Yep.
plant in his budget today.
Yep.
And it was like, I think it was about 1,000. So,
and we've only got 7 in the old garage. And the new garage lighting's better. They're I forget what you call them, but they're like a gas-filled type.
right.
So-
They're like a halogen?
Yeah, but, well, they're like I forget the word,
Yeah,
hex.
okay.
They're softer but brighter,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think we'd only have to change the 7 8-footers.
So the 1640.2, which is at 1,300, you want to make that 2,300?
1640.2 you're talking about?
Yeah, it's under
Okay.
central garage equipment.
Yeah,
I think so.
Because you're going to buy them and install them yourself, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make that
from 1,300 to what, I'm sorry?
23.
23?
And then if you get the numbers before we finalize the budget, that'll be helpful to put in
Yes,
there.
I'll sit down with Ed tomorrow and get find out what he was looking at.
Okay, terrific. And then the LED in the pavilion will go under 7140.2.
Right,
Right, and so that also includes, what did we figure? 3 more beer cans and 2 more,
listed in here, yeah.
2 tables and 3 cans, I thought I saw.
yes,
Tables, yep, 1 and 3 cans. That's plus your $500 that you raised last year.
great. Terrific.
So contractual is down from the current budget of 17,350 to 14,630. So we just need to change the total there, in essence, so.
well, leave it there.
So contractual stays the same, right? Okay.
So refuse collection, disposal.
Just add 1,100 to the 42,056.
Yes.
You're on refuse collection?
Yeah,
So
personal
40
services are down because of the reallocation.
43,156.
The equipment is the truck payment each year, is the truck. The contractual is down to 61,250. You just want to tell us what's in that contractual, so everybody knows.
That's-
6024.
That is the tipping and dumping fees for the landfill.
All right.
Excuse me. Roger, you mentioned chips. When I looked at that mulch pile down there last fall, it's mulch. It's a lot of dirt in it.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Well, they've got a pile up to up behind their shed too, that like the tree guys that go around and chip dump for people to use for mulch for the gardens and stuff. And that's a lot cleaner, so I think we'll be able to use that. If not, I might have to.
So street cleaning, personal services is down because of the reallocation. Equipment is the same, 1,000, and contractual is the same. So a total is down to 5750 from 6739.
All right.
Cemetery, personal services is up because of the reallocation. The equipment is the same, and the contractual is the same as last year.
Okay.
So Roger's budget as it is without those two additions is just over or almost flat from 530,372 to 531,276. But if we show the reimbursement, that will
It'll be much higher, right?
It'll be much lower.
Lower.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The reimbursement is much higher than it was in the past. So we are actually adding $2,100 to this overall.
Yes.
So 1,000 for the pavilion lights and 1,100 for.
But taking out 7,000 because,
Oh, yeah.
because
oh,
of that,
right. You are correct.
because it was doubled in the.
Yeah. Terrific, Roger, well done. How much does that work out
Don't
to?
say that yet.
All right.
It doesn't yet, we still
Well, actually, it's down, which is great,
Yep.
and then showing the other, money that reimburses even gonna be down.
And that's
lower.
good.
But the question is, the budget would go based on the actual dollar amount. Okay, which is whatever minus the 7,000 plus the 2,000. So it's 5,000 less than this.
526,476.
Thank you.
Say, what was that?
526,476, 56.
And 56 cents. All right, good,
Excellent.
nicely done.
I hope.
Why don't you make a copy of this for Crystal? Is there any questions for Roger? He's gonna make a copy of the chip stuff for Crystal.
All right,
Any other
so, any other gaps? So there's a computer, so some of the items that are open here is a computer.
I didn't have a computer on there. That was from last year.
No, last year it was an item, I wasn't sure. We used the laptop that we replaced here. We,
Give it to her.
gave it to Roger for a newer,
Okay.
Seems to be working good.
for a new,
but
Yeah,
I don't go on.
so we can
computer.
take off computer?
right.
So we had talked also about getting you a phone. A refurbished or something, so that you would be able to take pictures, you'd be able to
I'm
do
actually
text.
working, I guess Ed has, had control of the Verizon account for a while now.
He has.
For a few years now. So he's like the point of contact and everything.
Okay.
But, so we were talking about taking out the, lifeguard's phone, because honestly, they all have phones of their own. And they have a radio that's given to them from the ambulance corps. So it's really not needed. And we spend like $16 a month, $17 a month on that all year long to keep that phone. So both Roger and Lenny have flip phones, which are really
Absolutely.
obsolete, yeah.
So if we could give him that.
So if
phone.
we can get them, well, no, all of those phones, all three of them were flip phones. So if we can find a cheaper, hopefully free smartphone with an upgrade, that'll keep us around the same cost for our,
Yeah, I always, because I have a cheap old antique phone, they constantly offer me upgraded phones for no cost,
right. Right, so like Ed and I had talked the other day about, calling them this week. So he can transfer over or add me as a point of contact for the Verizon and, talk to them about the representative about, phones for both Roger and
You
Lenny.
can get them pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
So do you
Plus, it'll be helpful with, like, if they take pictures of damages
Right.
or anything like that, it's just helpful to have.
Sure.
Right, so with these $16 a month, do you think those costs would go up with 3 phones on there? stuff.
Well, it would be,
Just 2 phones.
2 phones
Yeah,
and, you know, less the lifeguard phone. We would take the lifeguard phone off completely.
and add 2 phones.
And then,
You might have to
the,
pay like $10 a month.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
might
like a
be-
family plan.
Right,
you
it
know,
might
where
be
they
a
don't
little bit
charge you
more.
double.
Right, it might be just a
You know,
little bit
yeah.
more because it'll be a smartphone,
Right.
but, you know, we'll get those prices.
Okay,
this
so
week.
where do you wanna put pricing? Do you wanna keep that in under,
If Roger's phone
under
goes under the
1640.
1640.
okay, so we'll add phone.
Which I kept it the same honestly right now, I
Yep.
think, for now, until we got,
Okay.
210.
yeah, cell phone, 210 for the year, it's probably gonna go up a little bit, but, and,
Oh, this is it, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cell phone. Wow, 2,400 for the phone.
I keep that the same.
Yeah. No,
Because it's
but it's just
Frontier and
unbelievable.
it doesn't really go, their phone really doesn't go up
Nope,
much.
no,
It
it's
fluctuates.
just
but
shocking that
it's-
it's that much.
Yeah. My hope was to talk to them about, seeing what the pricing would be on the MyTel phone service, through Frontier, but, which would help possibly, you know, let us transfer between buildings and stuff like that,
Oh,
but
that'd be great.
we'll have to see, that might be expensive, so that might not be a thing for this year, it might be next year.
First, you said it would be minus 7,000, isn't the 7,000 moving up to the 90,000?
No, that's already in there.
Okay, all right, so.
Yeah, we had put that, we had moved that up there, it says sidewalks in the, in there,
Okay.
but we forgot to take it out of that line.
So, and all salaries are a 2% increase.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Don't we pay Jerry if he has to do anything to any of the benches?
Well, there's
He quit.
the beautification committee wants us to take over the benches, and we're in dispute over that because it's
Yeah, you met with Mitzi.
Yeah,
And I
the
think-
cost,
I think Jerry,
yeah, the cost of maintaining those are going up and up.
I know.
And so the thought is, go ahead.
and I believe Jerry said this last summer that
Was his-
He
was
doesn't
his
want to do it
last
anymore,
summer
yeah.
that he was gonna repair
Make
them. Yeah, he just couldn't do it
No,
anymore,
there's too
so.
many of them.
and they're not very durable,
No.
No.
being they're pine. I mean, every year we have repairs to do, so.
Yeah.
So the thought is to look at the ones that are in the worst shape, offer the plaques back to the people who donated and cannibalize those pieces for the existing ones. And if the beautification committee wants to change the type of benches going forward, we'll do that, but those benches
At
are
whose
expensive.
cost?
Their cost.
Their
Oh,
cost.
oh, thank you.
Their-
Oh,
No, no,
thank
no,
you.
not the
Thank you.
village's cost. No,
Thank
no,
you,
no.
all
Right.
right, yeah, make that clear, whose cost?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
not at our
Okay,
cost,
no.
no.
We don't wanna pay for any of that stuff, they're the ones that dealt with.
Well, this was always a little bit of contention with the beautification committee, with the
Yep.
grandiose ideas, but then who pays for these grandiose ideas?
Yep,
Taxpayer. No,
right,
it should be self-funded.
yep. Exactly,
They can do bake sales too.
yep.
All right, so any other questions for Roger? Great job.
Yeah, I think it
Thank you,
looks
Roger.
good.
Since I did such a good job, maybe I get a little bit more than 2%.
It's okay.
We'll get you.
2.000000001.
And I'll make you a copy of this, Crystal, if I can figure out your.
Yeah, and so just for my own benefit, we do have an opportunity to see up to 126 in chips.
Yeah,
That's the rollover, and then another 20
But he needs that.
another 13,
He still needs
because I think
that.
I've already used the
for
13.
paved New York. And have you identified what roads you want to pave this year?
I've been looking at that, that's gonna be, see, right there is what I have right now, the
Okay,
146, and then
Got
I've
it.
got this 13, not 27.
okay, and then the 1920 apportionment, that's already spoken for, right?
No,
Or is
that-
this a cumulative?
This is what was left from the 1920, and this is that's what they give us this year, this is the rollover that I had left, and that's the total.
Ah, okay, all right.
And this is
okay.
what they gave us this year, this was the rollover I had left, but I used that,
Okay,
so that it's only 13, not 27.
okay.
And the 60,000 still has to go for the truck this year that hasn't been delivered yet.
Yeah.
Yes,
So you'll get that before
They're saying May, so I don't know.
And then that
Time
gets
will tell.
reimbursed.
I'm hoping to get it before June, but
And then
So-
they'll reimburse you again for chips for that truck?
once that's paid for, they will reimburse that money. I'll throw this in the copy.
Good. I think that looks in good
You
shape.
guys want a break?
No.
We want you, Ed.
Right,
Come on down.
Come on.
Okay, so we're
It's
done.
been a very full day for me today, so I'm a little,
Getting
Well,
punched.
I got 2 more funds, here's one for you.
Yep.
That one, you have a spreadsheet for me?
This one?
Water and. I need one more spreadsheet, can I have one?
do I have one more?
You have the water,
I have this.
Which
Is there
one?
something else that we're
The
working on?
tentative-
water and.
Oh, you know, I
wastewater.
didn't put it
This is
into
water
the,
fund.
like, because actually
This is
his,
just water.
his line items, like his, budget, is strictly separated, you know, in, as far as F and G go. So when you look at this, the tentative budget, they're just his items. DPW is different because it's in with everything else. It's in with, you know, our line items and it's in with fire department and,
But you did
So-
these for, remember we had done, we worked on last week?
it's in here.
That's what you have.
It's in, well, it's
But
in your
just
packet.
for another time.
It's in your packet with what I printed out for Roger too.
Wait a minute.
Oh, it's in the market.
In
You have
here.
to have one of those long ones?
So
Oh,
in
it's in
here.
this packet.
Yeah, so
Okay.
after page 15, you'll find,
Gotcha, okay, thank you,
the water.
thank you.
You want one of these too?
Well, yeah, if they're gonna go off of that, I just, I guess they don't need.
Do you wanna share with me?
Sure.
Okay.
You can share. Save a tree.
Right?
No help but save trees now with paper bags.
I know. Good for the reefer industry.
Go back to paper and don't figure out a way to make ones that decompose. That's just great. Okay.
So they, basically did the same thing, the 2% on the raises.
Yes.
Those all allocated, and again, the
Right.
funding for, is in Rogers, just to close that out. The temporary help is now, it's gonna be the full-time help, 3 days a week, and we put that into Rogers funding.
For
Right.
3 days a week, and then,
Ed put it his for 2, so that's
Right.
covered, there'll be no temporary
Right.
help because we're hiring.
2 days in every third weekend, once we can get them on weekend duty. So,
So in place of a temporary employee for Roger, there'll be a full-time, I'm calling it a floater between the two. Between DPW and
So we're
water,
hiring one more
wastewater.
person?
Yeah,
Oh,
in
one
place
more.
of a temporary.
Oh, when
Or
was that
two.
brought up? Did I miss that? So-
It was just something that was discussed between,
I was trying to find a way to alleviate some of our overtime, and then also trying to plan ahead for the garage and people retiring there,
Okay,
while not putting the whole burden on either water, sewer, or the DPW.
okay.
So we thought a crossover employee would be a good way to do that.
Because who said they were gonna retire in May? That was, what's his name?
that might be Wayne.
Wayne may
Wayne may.
retire, but then you have, you got Roger, you got Paul, that any of them could go.
Right,
whenever
they've
choose,
all
you
got
know what I mean?
retirement,
So they
right.
got their 10 years.
So what would this person be trained with insofar as the water and sewer department?
They would be trained just like a full-time employee down there. They would get their licenses, except they would work in both departments. They'd also get their CDL. So if Roger needed him to drive, he could drive garbage. And then the 2 days a week with me helps us get things done we need to get done during the summer. Preventive maintenance wise.
I think we'll have
And
the
also
contract
if,
underway from now until probably eternity at the sewer plant, the new contract. So some of Ed's time will be devoted to that contract to ensure that we're getting the equipment that we're paying for and installed correctly. So Ed is gonna need to take on a double
Focus on
role as engineer and supervisor.
Okay,
And so it's actually offset by the savings that they get in overtime as well.
right, right.
yeah, it's a,
And the temporary help.
Well, that, and yeah,
And the general
DPW.
plan.
And it would also allow us a little, like right now, we're every other weekend, and we're starting to realize that doctor's appointments and
Uh-huh,
just having an extra 2 days to recover from
Right,
things
okay.
like last
This
Monday
week.
and Wednesday.
okay,
It just helps a lot, so.
okay.
And in DPW, last year, there was 2 temporary employees, so that would take away the 2 temporaries and just have 1.
So we would not be hiring 2 temporary employees for this summer for Roger?
Correct.
Correct?
Yes,
One
he would
temp,
be
And
1.
then 1 full-time employee that works between both departments. The days Roger doesn't need them, I take them,
Okay,
and vice
And his
versa.
pay is $15 an hour.
right, I see.
And once he gets his licenses, obviously,
Well, then
saves
it's
us,
gonna-
then.
Right,
It would hopefully also help with, keeping somebody on in case of that, like you said, in case of that. Somebody retires or gets hurt.
Long-term planning.
Yes, succession planning, right.
well, if somebody retires, then you're almost in the same position,
Correct.
right,
Where I
you're
don't,
back to square one again,
yeah,
right.
you guys have to start thinking about that too.
Well, no, well, that's what I mean, you talk about long-term planning, yes, so
Yeah.
somebody retires,
But at least they'll be sort of being trained already, so if they do retire, and again, there's specifics, because we talked to Roger about Wayne retiring, he would promote somebody to take Wayne's position.
right.
So then you would just be hiring another, just instead of.
Right, I think it's a good idea, but I think in the long run, it'll probably cost more money, not that that's bad, sometimes it does, sometimes you have to spend more money, I'm not, but when you're saying you're going to do it for a cost-effective
Right.
measure.
I actually-
Probably not, in the long run, it'll probably
Right.
cost us more, but it might be a more
Well,
efficient
over
way of
time,
doing
as people
it.
retire, their salaries are gonna go down.
Right, once you don't have, once somebody retires, then you're not losing more money because they're replacing that person you were paying. In my department's a little different,
Right.
because he's not replacing anybody, but that's why I only did 2 days a week, and then
Right.
every third weekend. So,
So that was the other thing I forgot to mention in the DPW is, I allocated that person's percentage of time in lieu of the temporary employee.
Right,
So I took what their total time would be for the year, minus what Ed needs him for in water and sewer, and used that amount of time and allocated it properly within Roger's budget.
but you can't pay that person as a straight laborer's wage.
no,
because
once
if
they
they're-
get a CDL,
no,
they
right.
would get a
At,
dollar.
at
raise.
first, they would
It's
be,
the same
Well,
as
plus
any,
the training that they
Plus-
require for the water and
Yeah.
sewer.
plus, yes,
That's
plus a dollar,
worth
plus a
dollar
dollar.
Right.
signs.
So
So-
that's gonna take time, because.
Oh, yeah.
right,
And we also-
Water, they'll get relatively quickly, but with wastewater, all the time it has to be documented. The time they're taking samples and so on and so forth, but like
Right.
mowing the lawn doesn't count and things like
The
that,
technical
so,
stuff.
yes.
We also
Technical
reduced
stuff.
It will take a little time for the wastewater.
They're getting, remember in the employee handbook, we're reducing sick time from 700 hours
Right.
to 240 hours. So that's a big savings
There.
over the again, if you
Over the
stretch
course
that
of a
over the
lifetime.
course of a lifetime of the employee, that's a big savings.
Right,
I mean, and just in the amount of overtime we got this year, that it would be a huge help to have somebody take on some of the overtime we know we have to work, not the overtime that we don't know.
Right,
Emergency
right,
overtime.
right.
And there was a lot of that this year, which really put a damper on some of things.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
no, I
just a
think
thought I
it's, no, I
had,
think
and
it's a good idea, I really
you
do.
know, I know you were here when we discussed going to 2 people, and.
Yeah, cause I was very much not, in favor of not having 3 people down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we can do it with 2 people,
I
it just,
know.
there comes a point when
No, I
it
think the
can be too
crossover
much,
is,
and just having that little break.
but the crossover is a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
But I've always been opposed to having 3 people
Yep.
designated strictly for water and sewer.
Yeah. I mean, at one point, there were, what, 5?
I
There
know,
were a lot of
I
people
know,
down
there were a
but
lot of people
it's-
down there.
Unfortunately, it's like this all over the state, so.
You know,
So Ed, if you look at 8340.12 on the second page,
Yes.
you have a block there looking at if you worked every third weekend, if
Correct.
Lenny worked every third weekend, and then the additional employee with extra overtime, so,
it's in the middle
sorry,
instead
Mike.
right.
So instead of,
So the
Thank
block.
you.
in the middle
So the-
instead of
You wanna start at the beginning, or?
Okay, well, since we were talking about people, that's why I was just jumping. So if you want to explain that to Karen, how that,
So basically what I've done here is I've taken our salaries, multiplied them by the number of hours we work in a given year. And that gives you our overtime. That would be normal every other weekend. And then next to that, I just created what it would cost every third weekend
Okay.
instead, so, and actually,
so instead of
I don't-
$5,000, $5,023 for Ed, if he worked every third weekend, it'd be $3,750.
I didn't change that.
I literally just printed
Okay.
this off, you sent me today, and it's not the same number.
What did you do?
Printed the one off you sent me. Oh, and then, wait a minute,
There you go.
you're in water?
And
That's
then-
why, okay.
And then for Lenny, there's an approximate savings of $1,050. And then when you add in the additional employee, there's an overall savings of 24.
You'd subtract the 17, the
Yeah,
14,744.
And that number isn't a budget number, that's just, we'll be over budgeted if we get a third employee, but
Right.
at least you have an idea of
Right,
what.
right,
And
as
the
to why.
wastewater would
Be the same.
mimic the same.
Would mimic this.
Similar, but
Right.
that's something we can discuss too, how we allocated that, so.
Good. So you wanna start from the top, Ed?
Sure, so basically the biggest thing that's changed up here is we have insurance needs for the plant. In the past, it was always just, I think, $6,500 for both. We've actually changed that a little bit to, account for what it actually is with the insurance, and actually,
Sorry?
Crystal did
We're
that
starting
work.
at the beginning.
So those numbers I put
starting
in
at the
there,
beginning.
they haven't changed much. Our contingent fund's still $15,000, let's hope we don't have to use it. And then we have it at, F8310.1, which is administration. We've added this line for the time I spend in the office doing office
Right.
work. In the past,
So-
it was all under one code.
Correct.
And,
And so now this gets reflected in our workers' comp.
correct,
Right.
so
So we figured
it's more accurate.
about 60% of Ed's time is spent on administrative duties. So to allocate that time, I just took, 60% of his total salary and moved it to those
We,
split, well, we. Ed also did that too.
This shows the 65-45 split too,
well, we haven't talked about that yet.
okay.
Yes, this actually does show it's 45-55
45-55.
instead of,
From wastewater, yeah, cause
Right.
it used to be 50-50 was allocated,
yeah,
and that wasn't true numbers, he spends more time on wastewater.
a tiny bit more time.
Basically, we matched it to, well, they matched it to what,
Retirement
New York
does.
State Retirement does.
Right,
So now it's 55% is water, sewer, and 45% is water.
Yep.
It's a way to make things a little better in both budgets, so.
right.
And it more accurately reflects
Correct.
what we're reporting elsewhere as well.
Correct.
Right.
Am I okay to move on?
Yes, sir.
Quick question.
Yes.
No, you may not. Go ahead.
Contingent fund. So, the FUPAs with the extra OT and so on and so forth, was a contingent fund used for that at all? Or that
I
just came
don't
out of
think
I
general?
don't believe so. I think we used, I can't remember, we'd have to go back and ask Claire, but I believe we used the contingent fund out of water last year to pay for something, and I
'Cause I don't
don't
see any-
recall what it is at the end of the year.
He just started you just started the contingent fund just
So when I
last
started
year, right?
working here, it was like $5,000, which
Right.
you and I both know that's not gonna cover anything. So over the last few years, I've started to increase it.
So, we had,
So it should be 5,000 in
'Cause
there.
what's it say?
This should be 5,000. I probably didn't add that.
No, it was 15 last year.
15.
It's 50.
So
Yeah,
I
but-
believe at
Oh,
one
so-
point,
but I don't see anything expensed against.
So, correct, so they didn't use any of that money in these 2 years.
Oh,
So
you're
this
in
is
the-
the expended
this one's the,
for 17, 18 and 18, 19.
So here's the current year,
it's still there.
right?
Yeah,
So the contingent fund, he didn't use it this year, doesn't plan on using it, gets rolled over to the reserve fund for vehicles or
Well-
his general, depending, we talked about 2,000 into the reserve fund for vehicles and then the rest goes into
Yes.
his reserve.
Yes and no, it depends on, how the end of the year
Well,
plays
yeah.
out.
Looks,
You know what I
These
mean?
are
So
just estimates.
if there's a fund balance, and that fund balance is that contingent fund, then that money would get allocated.
Something to think about going forward is maybe we need a contingent policy of some generalized,
What gets, what,
what qualifies for contingency use.
Would be
It's anything-
As
anything
guidelines,
for emergency.
you know, instead of making, you know, the seat of your pants decision kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know, when a need arises.
Yeah, I haven't, the only
Just
time
a thought going
the only
forward.
time I've ever used it was, last year when we had to replace well head number 2, we had to
Right.
replace the well. That was not budgeted, so that's where that money had been pulled from, contingent.
that was in 18-19, right?
Correct, in 1920, I budgeted number 1 and replaced that, and you've seen
Yep,
at least we're back to square one now. and,
Right.
You know, they've been done, so
great,
20 years, we'll have to think about replacing them again.
all right, good.
As for F 8310.4, not much has changed there. We just did a few things in there to make it a little easier for her and I when we need to code
What
something.
is Neptune Harris support? What is
That's
that?
our
Reader.
meter
Is that the readers?
readings,
That's the
and
read-
then
okay, that's
also
right.
Right.
on her end.
This
the
will
bill-
actually
the billing
be,
section.
Williams and Law books,
Oh, sorry.
not,
So that budget is the same as the year before.
Actually, it went down a little.
Showing,
It's 1,000 last year. I think it was 1,500 or something.
well, for that item,
Oh, the
yeah.
total.
Yeah.
You're looking at the total budget number.
53.15.
Total.
Yes.
I think it
I
came
don't
out
have
the
that in front of me.
same,
About the same, yes.
yeah, I think it kind of, yeah,
Right here.
or a little bit,
yeah, from 22 took it up, yeah.
yeah, it's almost the same.
So F 8320.2, this is decreased by $10,000, I believe.
You took the take.
Yes.
I took tank maintenance out. I'm not sure why that was in there.
I thought it had to be recoded.
Nothing that I remember or was told since,
No,
That's
that's,
part of the
I started here-
refurbishing plan.
that was a contractual thing that was removed from the contract because of the cost. So, tank
no,
code.
what?
Code.
No.
She's at-
Oh, no, that's
Yeah.
wastewater. We're on,
Oh.
yeah. No, tank maintenance would be,
Oh, right,
the
right, you're right,
tank up
you're
on
right.
top of the
You're
hill.
right, you're right.
There was $10,000
That's
there,
wastewater.
whether that was a way to keep the budget the same, or I'm not really sure.
Fluctuation.
So I removed that to decrease our budget.
Usually inspected every 10 years.
It's inspected every 5 years with a camera, and it's always immaculate. So,
Terrific.
I mean, in worst case scenario, say something had happened with the tank. A tree fell on it and took a big chunk out of it, that's where contingent money may come in play.
Right.
It's not gonna cost 15 grand, but that's what we can use. So I thought it'd be a good way to alleviate some of the stress on the budget, to remove that. If you're okay with that, we'll move on.
Purification.
8320.4, this is our contracts.
You can cross out me adjust, that's fine.
Okay. Christopher.
Yeah, those are notes that I put on there when
Yeah.
I sent it to
That's right.
her.
I looked at that, so,
Where are we here?
we're
I'm still getting used to it.
Contractual 8320, so
Two
power,
point
propane,
Yeah,
next
so,
That remained the same from last year.
yeah, I didn't change anything, the only thing that was adjusted, I think, was power, and it might have stayed the same.
But the total line.
power is the same, yeah, it's the same.
The total line item is down from 37 to 27 because of 10, so that's a 20, minus 26.9% change.
Oh, cause those codes are together. that's-
Cause the, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Yep.
cause of the 0.2 and the 0.4.
They're both 8320.
1,400.
So yes, it's went down because of the tank maintenance that I removed.
Okay.
So is there anything in there, Ed, that would look towards replacing an engine in our generator?
That's water, so we're not there yet.
We're in water.
No, the generator you're talking about is in the, at the wastewater plant.
Yes, sir. Always. Would you like to move on?
Yeah.
Yes.
F 8330.2, that one went up a little because I'm thinking about changing the chlorination system over to hypo instead of the calcium hypochlorite we use now.
From 800,
Yes, to 1,500. That's the cost of 2 new pumps to handle the actual dosage rates we need to go to the liquid chlorine instead
And what are
of.
the advantages of that?
So the advantages, I'm hoping that will occur is we'll spend less time there maintaining it and pulling valves apart and cleaning calcium out. So the calcium, basically what's happening is it creates a solution in this hopper. And this hopper, that solution then is pumped through the lines, but when it's not running, that calcium in that solution settles and it plugs things up.
Precipitation.
So we are constantly over there
Right through
pulling T's out and valves and cleaning things out, and I think that'll alleviate a lot of the problem.
Perfect.
I'm hoping it'll be the pump, a tube going down, put the 5-gallon carboy of hypochlorite underneath it, turn the pump on, and
It
it's
starts
done.
to pay for
Instead
itself.
of having to,
And
and the cost difference
yeah,
between
that's what I was gonna
a
ask.
new Constachlor system and this is significant.
That
So-
sounds like a better idea.
Yeah,
Good.
it's worked for us. A lot of places it hasn't worked, but I think it's a better method for us to go about, and it'd be more cost effective to just use it than the other one, so.
Terrific.
So that just, the total budget went from 6935 to 7800, which is a 12% increase.
Yes. Because now we have to add in the lead and, what are we adding
You had
in?
new
Not the
things.
lead and copper.
No,
The-
that's
what are
waste.
we-
No,
You're thinking wastewater. We're not there yet.
So lead and copper is water, and that is the next code. Every year I'm sent a sheet from DOH and it tells me what I have to sample. Well, this year we have to do disinfection byproduct stage 2, which used to be every 2 years, now they've changed it to every year, so that will be there every year now. Lead and copper is every 3 years. So we will be doing lead and copper based on a schedule that Jimmy created before he left.
So this is in the new Speedies permit.
No, that's different.
That's
This
still
is-
wastewater.
And I would like to just,
There was water.
this went down quite a bit then, from 120 to 86.
so, which one?
Well, that's.
The whole, the
83.
whole,
40.
Distribution, that's a personal service.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
all.
but the bottom line is down significantly,
We have to.
yeah.
We can discuss that another time,
Okay.
unless you wanna discuss it
No,
tonight.
no,
We have to try to take these budgets and match them more to what our actual expenses are
Okay.
throughout the year.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that's not possible,
Yeah.
like contingent money has to be there in case we need it.
yeah.
But the bottom line is, in order to plan for the future and make sure we're not in the red, we have to keep an eye on it.
Eric did his projections,
Yes, and we've tweaked the projections.
so we're following the projections.
We're gonna have another meeting regarding our 30-year projection analysis. With help, Eric created that for us, he gave it to Crystal and I and told us that that is now our job. Which we're perfectly fine with, it gives us a really good way to prepare
ahead, yeah.
and see what we need to do to make sure we're
Within.
at least flat.
Just remember the contractual stuff that's coming up, some of that cuts costs, it's allocated differently, but it does cut some of the costs out of his budget for wastewater and not water.
So really, like taking money out of contingent doesn't make sense, because if it's not spent, it's not an actual cost.
Right.
It's there in case of an emergency. Other things we've removed are actual expenses that now won't be,
Right.
which helps, so.
So just to give some perspective, Ed, do we have what the revenues were last year and what they actually are?
That'd be, the actual revenue for last year for water, I believe, was 168,000
And it was budgeted at,
to,
Actual revenues for,
well, this says
1890.
256, so,
so it's quite a,
that's not the number, but it's significantly higher than what our actual expenses were
For water.
for water.
right, so now we're bringing them in line.
We're trying to just make sure that our revenues match our expenses as best possible, because if we don't, then,
So the revenue number for this year's budget is 268, 934.
Yeah, and our, now those actual operating expenses were from 18-19. The 168,000, we'd have to bring that up to discuss it more. So we have to project more towards our actual expenses, because we have no idea what the end of the year is gonna look like.
Right.
You know, so if we don't do that, then we're gonna cause problems for ourselves.
So
The only thing I'd like to ask about this, and I just got looking at this lead and copper number of 350.
Is that accurate?
I'm not sure that is accurate, I
thought
have
it
to
was more
double check.
expensive.
I think I may have put for one sample in there and I have to take 6.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was more expensive.
I could be wrong, let me see on this here,
How often? 4 times a year?
just once a year,
Oh, once a year.
yeah, it'd be one fee. I
For lead-
just was looking at that and I said, wait a minute, that's,
That seemed low?
yeah, so in sewer, it's just all under lab tests, so I don't have it broke down right there. Actually, I think I have it.
Are we on 8340.2 now, or
No, 0.4.
0.4?
330.4, and I might actually have that number right here, so just give me 1 second.
8340.
8330 or 40?
83, oh, I was on 30.
I was on 32 because the copper,
8340.4.
because of the, yeah, the lead and copper.
8330.4. 8330.4.
Right, where it says lead and copper.
Right.
You guys actually jumped back up to the line item before.
Alright,
Yeah, cause we went back for the lead and copper.
I believe that number,
He
that
thinks
350
This 350 is too low, right. On that page, right.
should be more like 2,100, but,
Oh, wow, that's a big difference.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge jump the last time we saw
I don't
it.
have my laptop or the computer in front of me to check my email.
Isn't it just 5 samples?
Five samples.
5
So
samples.
5 times 350?
1750.
I will, yeah,
Just check it.
yeah, I mean, it needs to be done, so. One way or another. I'm not sure why I put, I know the disinfection, but I thought it was
So
good.
that'll be the number 1750?
Well,
Well, if you were to add
Worst case scenario, yes.
1750 minus 350 added to the 63. Yeah,
Yeah, I
it'd
don't
be
know
1750
why I did
minus
that.
350, whatever
I
that
don't know
difference
why I didn't catch
is,
it
added
before.
to the bottom line of 6,300 would give you an actual number.
Well, I'm looking at,
770.
I'm looking at samples from,
7700?
these are costs from, for wastewater that we need to do with our new speedies.
That's if it's
And
5
total
instead
copper
of
alone is
6.
228.
That's if it's 1,500.
So I'm
right.
guessing with the lead, it's gonna be more like 350 per sample.
yeah, well, you can just go and find out.
I'll clarify that and let you guys know.
Then that would just increase this to 7,700.
Okay. Yeah, and overall, it's not
No,
terrible.
no.
For one thing, yes, it is, but. Yeah. All right, the next two are payroll. Do we need to discuss that again?
No.
No.
The only thing I'd like to say is that now 60% is administrative, so now you'll see that my salary is less because it's up in another line item. Half of it,
Right.
a little over half of it. Okay, so F 8340.2, this is equipment lasting more than 5 years. This has decreased, I believe.
Yes. And 45,
Yes, yeah,
750 to
16.
16.
Yeah, so
64%.
Quite a bit. The well was in there last year, that was $21,000, so obviously that was a large portion of that. We've removed some things to make it a little bit better.
And the meters, right?
Oh, yeah, so I removed hydrant repair and,
Yep.
Oh, now I found it.
Our-
This way, this way, this way.
I removed hydrant repair and meters and RF devices
trying to
because
save
we
paper.
have,
That's fine.
we have that equipment down on the shelf, meters and stuff.
So equipment is in stock.
Correct. As for hydrants, we have 2 brand new hydrants down there. Any parts I need, I can pull from, miscellaneous hardware, so on and so forth, any
Terrific.
maintenance equipment.
That helps.
Any questions on that one?
Remember the hydrant repair, is that hydrant out of service?
2 are out of service, the one on the corner by, Mountain Market,
Yeah,
that's out of service, and more than likely, I may remove that hydrant altogether. There's another one right down the road, there's one right across from Mountain Market. It's a very old hydrant, and if you can't tell where it is, it's not an easy one to fix if we decided to fix it. That goes across the main road and connects, so. Yeah, more than likely that one's just gonna get nixed. There's another one down the road by, well, up from the firehouse. That one needs to be replaced, it's 8 feet deep. We just haven't done it yet, sorry. Time. 8340.4. I believe this has stayed the same
Yep.
all across the board.
Yep. Okay. So you have a C.
Yes, and it, like I said, overall, if you actual expenses to what the budgeted expenses are, what I've done is definitely lessened the budgeted expenses, but it's still not on par with our actual expenses, so we have to, I have to keep an eye on how I spend and make sure I don't hit that budgeted expense number. There's stuff in there that obviously we don't purchase, but it has to be there, so. As for New York State retirement, I think that number stayed the same.
Yeah, that stayed the same.
The only big change here, 9060.8 is insurance, which you guys all know about. And then the big one, which is why we have to really keep an eye on our budget, F9710.6, bond interest, principal project, or so on, whatever, water project.
Yeah, water project.
That's 20 grand, that's a $20,000 hit to my budget every year that we are now
and the balance is?
taken care of.
What's the balance?
More than I'll pay, it won't be paid off, I'll be retired by the time it's paid off, so.
I think it's up to
This one is
2036 or something.
Oh, 39, is that the one,
39.
2039?
No, that's the sewer one.
Oh, that's the same.
This one is the,
25.
this one is actually two together, that we pay for together. One is
Just about.
there. It's a smaller one that's like 2,000 to 3,000 a year. And then, the principal, and then, and the interest is like 700 and something. And then the other one's a little bit bigger. Yes, one is very close, like very low, we could pay that off, but we don't really have the money to pay it off, so.
It's insignificant
Yeah.
to my budget.
Right.
to
I
pay.
mean, at
Exactly.
this point, I'm trying to get the guy to call me back at USDA because those bond interests are at 4.5%, which are huge compared to the Fed's cutting budget, interest rates again, so.
And
They
I
may be
believe
reluctant.
I believe that's the upgrade project for the new water system. That's why it's so expensive. That was a lot. But it had to be done because you guys don't
Right.
like drinking lake water, so. So that's pretty much it for water.
Yeah, the adopted last year was 290,000, and it's got it down to 256, which is, minus 11.63%.
I'm sorry, what line are you
Correct.
on?
He was just doing the difference between last and this year and
We're down
converting it to a
11%.
percentage.
And I don't see me getting it much better than that.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
But that's a budgeted number, not an actual expense, so.
Right.
We'll have to play it by ear and see how we do for next year.
What was that number, Mark, 290?
It's on the last,
On page, number 4,
Four, top line.
for water.
Sewer.
And there's about $1,100 with that.
Yeah,
testing
water
that
is
goes into
the,
that.
take water up here.
And the as you all know, last year was the first year that water was actually had a fund balance. But that was because we had paid
Water
back the
fund.
general fund.
Water fund, right here.
Water.
So just remember that it roughly a $1,700 change to that total line item, depending on
Correct,
what that
yes.
fund is.
More than likely, that number that I put in originally is wrong, so.
All right, wastewater?
Yep. Insurance needs, same thing as before, that's actually been allocated proportionally to the wastewater plant instead of one number across. It went up a little, I believe.
Yes.
from 62, I think, to 7150. I don't have the old numbers in front of me, so I'm giving you.
5,200.
5,200 to 71.
Where I gotta
Yeah.
find it on
So
this
almost
page.
2,000.
What page is that?
It's a new page one.
It's a no,
Yep,
it's
new
a
page
new
one.
page one.
It's,
That means I have to go
only
this
2
way.
pages left in the, 3 pages
Last
left
two.
in the budget.
Wait a minute.
Hold on. Okay.
I'm easily confused.
No, it's
You
okay.
know that.
Just so long as you're not disoriented.
It's hard when I
Well,
do
'cause it's going
back
this way, this way,
back
this
and
way, this
forth, but I was trying to save paper by,
That's it,
It
thank
only
you.
has $1 in for paper now.
I know.
$1.
I'm trying to be eco-friendly, guys.
Could be writing it on the back of our hands.
So I did spend most, I will be honest, I spent most of my time
19.4.
with water, because that was the biggest concern. Wastewater's pretty much the same, so we will just go through it quickly. So the insurance needs went up a little bit, contingent funds the same, Gene 190.90, or, yeah, 0.4. That administrative line's been added. 8110.4, that went down a little bit, just to get our numbers a little closer to actual expenses. Payroll's the same as before. 8130.2,
So I'm sorry, this would include a day of a person.
yes,
Right, okay, that's good.
well, the 45
Yeah.
and 50, yeah. However, Crystal's figured that part out.
However, what?
You figured that out. Well, I did the first part and you did the second part, once we decided the 45-55 split, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Any discussion on those, or we're okay?
I didn't change the additional person, I just did 50/50.
Yeah, that's cause two,
Yep.
yeah,
Right,
that's
and
fine,
then it's 50.
that's fine.
8134.2.
Yes,
51.
this has went down because I added, last year I added a code in here because we kept getting bills from Lamont, and I didn't know where they were supposed to be coded. But now that I know, because the project started, and they're taking care of all those duties and handing those bills in for us. There was 10 grand there,
Great.
I removed it.
Yep.
I left meters in wastewater because the budget can handle that, for now, and if I need something, then that's where it can come from, cause it's budgeted, so at least one of them still has it. And as I had said, both water and sewer, I added the LED lights to the budget this year instead of trying to find the monies in a computer. Last year, or the laptop that I donated to the village, unfortunately has an old Windows on it. It doesn't have, it has Windows Home on it, it needs Windows Business.
Yeah.
The cost of Windows Business didn't make sense for me to put it on the old computer, so.
Yeah.
Expensive.
You can get a laptop for relatively cheap, our number's probably, maybe a little high here, depending on who we purchase it through, so.
Yeah, we talked about it, like, to get the, like antivirus software and stuff and like that, the
If
security
we wanted
stuff
all
on the
the
laptop as
security
well.
that's here, down at the wastewater plant, then that's where the additional cost.
Yeah,
Using
so we basically budgeted for
your,
that,
who is that?
ABS solution.
Using ABS Solutions. See, in the past, I used Osborne computers. I think that we're trying to get away from that a little bit, so we
We
can.
didn't use it at all this year unless he came to you.
Yes, he came to me, so I set up a contract with him to come and take a look at my computer and so on and so forth, but we may be changing that, so.
I think it all depends on pricing, right?
Pricing, yeah, he built, after the fire, he built my desktop, and it was relatively cheap, it wasn't that much money, so, you know, we'll see what happens there.
Correct. Contractual, .4.
Yes.
That's up 4.17%.
That's up because of, let me just look at this quick.
Manhole inserts.
Yes, during our inspections, we pulled these, I plastic rings out that were either damaged or we damaged in the process of trying to remove them. They help from I from getting into the manholes, leaking around them. They're just plastic rings that go in. I put $1,000 in there, so we can start replacing some of those that we've damaged.
And
Or that
those were
were
damaged from where?
They're either damaged from us removing them, or they were already previously damaged.
Okay, alright.
Basically, they're plastic.
I'm always
There's
asking
a-
about that
There's
storm.
a strap on them, and if they're really stuck and you pull on that strap, you'll
It'll
rip the
crack.
thing right out, and then you gotta punch a hole in it to get it out. So,
Okay.
the biggest reason this increase is because of Speedy's requirements.
Yep.
Our laboratory tests, lab tests, I think that used to be 1,600,
Yeah.
and it went to 4,000. There's just more that we have to sample this year, so there's
So it's
nothing we can
4,000
do about
plus
that.
1,100, right?
Where's,
So it's 5,100.
Oh,
So
right.
the lab supplies, chemical reagents, and the lab tests. So that
oh,
altogether is
yeah,
51.
but those supplies and chemicals, and that
Yeah.
stuff that we buy
Yep, yep.
for down there.
Yep. Oh, okay, I got
Yeah,
you.
that's nothing with the lab, the actual lab test is what we send to CNA,
Got it.
which there may be some reagents that. we
Are they
need to
just
buy.
more frequent, or is there greater analysis?
There's no more frequency, there's greater analysis, so, and also that's gonna include, some extra, that number should go down a little next year. We have to do a year-long study with copper, because they were concerned with copper in our effluent.
So
So
many
with that
people have
year-long study, it's a
copper
copper
pipes.
sample every month, once a month. So you have CBOD, for influent and effluent, that's monthly, TSS, influent, effluent, that's monthly. TKN, ammonia, these are one, so from here down, we never had to do.
Total
before.
suspended solids.
TKN, ammonia,
nitrogen.
total phosphorus, total copper,
I'm like. I have
ambient
no idea what
hardness.
these things are.
It's all stinky.
total copper again.
It's in your house.
Those are all additional requirements monthly. The funny thing about these are, some of them aren't even, they don't go against us, but we still have to sample them. And
We
that's
have no
just-
industry here.
That's so that
Yeah.
when they decide to do another permit review,
Yeah.
Right.
they have a baseline to go off of, and then they actually can give us a limit. Hopefully that doesn't.
You don't
We're
have
doing
to-
a study for,
You don't have to test for lead in the effluent, do you?
For sewer?
Yeah?
No.
No.
Copper is their big
Just
thing.
copper, oh.
The big things now are copper, phosphorus, and, Teflon products, which we don't have here. Those are PFOAs and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
That would be water, and then they wanna see what
don't you have to
wastewater's
do one low
dumping.
level mercury sample too?
We did that already.
Okay.
There was no hit on that
Was none
to warrant them
Okay.
seeing continued sampling.
Okay.
Right.
It did say something in there, but then if you read on a little further, it said, we're not including that. We have over a year to make sure we're in compliance, so,
Great.
yeah, I don't see any issues with it, just the cost.
Okay.
So basically.
This polymer number, I left at 2,000. More than likely, it may go down a little, it may go up a little. I don't really know because I'm using a new polymer, so,
Okay, oh, that's right.
yes.
It's supposed to save us money.
Well,
It's supposed to.
it makes process better. But we may use more polymer, but then, I think that number was always high, to be honest.
Yep. And then you.
This is the big, another one addition, soda ash. $2,000 for soda ash. With these requirements, we always had this issue in the summer where we get some smell down in the plant, August, when it's really
Remember
hot.
last year?
Oh, yeah.
So in order to alleviate that problem, along with a few others which I can mention, we used to turn the air off to increase our alkalinity. So we could hold our pH, because if you get to a point in time during the year when it's cold at night, hot during the day, and our DOs aren't proper. So in order to get our pH up and keep it up is soda ash, and this stuff is expensive. I had budgeted it for two months, one bag a month. And I have that one in front of me. I think it's like $26 a bag, so 40-pound bag.
40 pound?
Yeah. But this will also help our process better, more. And then along with this, you know, we may be able to get away with removing some of this in the future with the upgrade project. We're gonna, I'm hoping in contract too, we can regulate our DO better and, control some of that.
Is that-
The other problem is, a lot of that smell comes from these digesters. They're 12,000 gallon digesters. We're getting rid of so much solids in the summer.
Yeah.
That you gotta turn that digester off to get the water out of it every 2 days. Well, the more you do that, the more it turns into a septic tank.
Right.
So you get a lot of smell. With the project, if we get the extra digester out back, then I don't have to do that as frequently, and so there's a lot of things that come into play. Luckily, total phosphorus wasn't a requirement. We have to sample it, but it's not a limited requirement, so we didn't have to add mag or something along those lines to settle phosphorus out. That was a big concern of mine because that also increases more solids, and we definitely don't have the space as of now, so. But I'm planning the new tank because if that does come about in the future, at least we're ready for it and we can handle those solids.
Very good.
Yeah, I must have printed it.
You ran out?
So that line item has a 2.4% increase.
Yeah. And that's just mostly because it's sampling in the required soda ash that I'm gonna need. It's not required, but it's my suggestion we use, so.
So there is a change under hospital and medical insurance, 9060.8. I think that's because Lenny went from family to.
Yes,
Yeah.
last year Lenny was family for both water and sewer, so that should
Yeah,
have
he went
decreased
to a,
quite a bit.
yeah, he went to a single.
Obviously,
right?
it was a budgeted number, not an actual expense, so.
Right.
And then the new employee portion of, obviously comes out of our budget.
Right. So even with all that, you're down 9%.
There.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of the change from
Yep,
an insurance.
yep.
So his total budget last year was 293, you were 295.
Less than
So
1%.
we were 311, modified the budget, so you were 311 last year.
Okay.
So you're down to 295, which is basically your adopted budget from.
The previous year.
So he's up 0.69%,
Yeah.
Essentially flat.
essentially flat.
Good.
Good enough.
Very good.
Good job.
Yeah, and we can have more discussion. I plan on, at the end of this year, once we get our actual expenses, Kristen and I will punch all that stuff into our 30-year analysis. And then we'll have a meeting regarding that. Hopefully we can get a TV here or something, a projector, and actually go through it with you guys.
Well, by
So with,
September, we should know, because if we're closing expenditures in May, hopefully by June, but by September, we should be able to start rolling money into, depending on what's left over with these guys and decide where the money's gonna go in each account.
so Ed, just a quick question, if I'm looking on page 3, so expended revenues, this is what we've collected to date. On
Yeah.
sewer fees, that's $164,382.
Hold on, I'm getting there.
That sounds about right, halfway through the year,
Okay,
Yes.
if it matches what our budgeted expenses are. And sewer is a lot closer. That gap's a lot closer in sewer than it is in water. So
Okay.
that's where we were trying to close.
so we should be closing about 289,907 in revenues, correct? Is that what I'm guessing?
That's what's budgeted.
220, 240, I don't,
But with the increases this coming year,
Yes,
we should
please.
be putting more money away technically.
Yes,
Now, the water is the only thing,
the water's that's why I spend so much time on the water budget. Because
It's
that's the one that
that
really,
we have to, in, what was it, 3
and
years?
actually Bonnie had said that prior to her leaving was that you guys need to start thinking about doing something with water because
Yeah.
you're gonna run into a problem.
alright.
next year we'll have to think of, increasing at least water, if not,
Well, it already is next
It
year.
already
No,
is.
so the next 3 years, it's this year, it was
It's
last year,
This past year,
and
this year, and next year.
So it's,
And we
Right.
discussed options for that, and we could discuss that now, or when we're here, but,
Well,
you got user rates and you got,
I think we should discuss it when we're talking about our 30,
Yeah,
like when we're
30.
looking at
There's
the
nothing we can do
30-year
about it.
analysis, cause that gives a better description of what, like, the last
They have
couple of
something to
years
compare it
and
to.
then going forward,
yeah, what it has to do, the numbers should come out just from that projection,
yeah,
exactly where you have to be.
yeah. And I think it's easier visually, like when you're visually looking at it, than to just throw out numbers here and,
yeah,
Right.
I agree.
So, we have one more session next Monday.
well, a tentative. That
Tentative.
if we want to have it, yes.
Okay, so the only portions in here now
It's the fire department.
And
is
me.
the fire department and you.
Well, you would,
Well-
I mean, yeah.
Do we need to talk about you?
I don't know, do we? I think we should, it's, I mean, not
Are you,
crazy.
are you prepared to talk about it now?
I don't have any of my breakdown with me.
So we need to get the fire department here, Matt or Brian here next Monday
So,
at what, 6 o'clock?
We had it down for 5 o'clock again,
next Monday.
5 to 6:50.
Because
Said
of
there'd be time
the,
to
yeah,
do
because of the
Pleasant.
Lake Pleasant
What's that?
meeting.
I don't have to come?
No.
I just let you guys know about that number and I'm good.
Yes.
Well, you
Yes.
just gotta get the crystal.
Yeah,
And were you donating any blood as well?
No, not ever since my arm blew up. I gave doubles once.
Well, so really, it is with the right numbers in it, is what you're gonna forward and.
If anything changes, it won't change much.
So your budget will involve like operating expenses for the village hall and that kind
Right.
of things, right? Okay.
Yes. Computers.
Right, that
Yep.
kind of software
yes.
Yep.
and all that stuff.
Which we don't have to purchase any new software except for we were talking about the
I hope
tax.
not.
You take the taxes back?
Yeah, if we take the taxes back, then we'd purchase the software, which is actually cheaper than if the county did it, so.
Correct. And so we have submitted everything we need
More
to
work
get
for me,
reimbursed
yes.
for matching. So whatever we save, they'll put back. And then I would think that if we get it back before May 31st, we should be able to purchase it in this budget year, the tax program instead of, would we be able to? No, okay. All right.
Because it'd be reimbursing the
Yeah.
So is-
overage that we already,
Jeanette, is this
have.
budget meeting over?
Yes, so if we're all in favor of closing down the budget meeting,
For water, sewer, and.
water,
DPW.
sewer, and garage, DPW, yep, okay. We can turn it off, thank you.